Everybody, welcome back to another Professional Insights brought to you by the National Referral Network. And this morning, we have Eric Litzter, owner of P3 Cost Analysts. Today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of business owners just aren't aware of. And Eric and I spoke a little bit before we came on air here, but we're going to talk about the cornerstones of an effective cost reduction strategy and where to start. We're going to start at the starting point simply because, well, a lot of business owners don't understand where they're leaking money. And I think it's a very valid conversation to have. So welcome to our Professional Insights, Eric. Good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
So let's just start off real quick, Eric. What is cost reduction? What do you do for business owners?
Yeah, great question to start with. We really focus on helping organizations that absolutely cannot stand, that hate unwanted and unknown overcharges, wasteful spending, wasteful costs, and also want to optimize every dollar. And really the key word that I mentioned, Mike, is unknown. These are costs that you just don't think about. They're not on your radar. And frankly, some of them you think are fixed costs and you just think that, hey, I got to pay it every month. And that's how things are.
So Eric, let's get into the weeds just a little bit. When we work with clients, we do a lot of benchmarks on, say, 401k plans or things like that, and they're just not aware. P&C insurance are some of the things that I'm aware of just working with some of the partners in the National Referral Network. Business owners just tend to set it and forget it, like that old cooking commercial, right? Set it and forget it.
Yeah.
What are some of the other examples of business expenses that are just leaking that nobody knows about?
Sure. So some of these are non-payroll related costs, such as utilities. We're talking electricity, gas, water, sewer, waste and recycling, telecom, merchant processing, leased copiers and printers. You have uniforms and linens, property taxes, and those are the types of unknown costs that, again, organizations like you just said, in fact, most literally, the bill comes in. If it looks like it did last month or close to it, it just gets a rubber stamp and gets paid.
So there's not a lot of oversight when it comes to some of these bills.
There's not a lot of oversight. And frankly, we hear all the time as well, oh, we're good because we took a look at it. It takes more than that. It takes more than, and as for the insurance side, et cetera, it's more than just taking a look at the bill and thinking that, oh, well, this is what it was last month and this is what it is this month, so we should be good.
Now, it's interesting, Eric, right? Because we always talk about leaking money, right? But if you don't even know, you don't know.
Right.
Where does somebody start
to
even begin to have that conversation? Because look, I pick on CPAs all the time.
Yeah.
And I do mean to. I mean to a lot. And I'll continue to pick on them because these are some of the things that I know are a detriment to their clients because they're not bringing this up. So if a business owner has their CPA on a pedestal and they do everything their CPA says, or they don't want to challenge their CPA, then how does a business owner go about even starting this conversation to shore these leaks up?
Absolutely. So the first is an acknowledgement.
Okay.
And I hate to say it, but there's pride. You don't want to be wrong. You don't want to say and acknowledge that, hey, we might have a problem. Gotcha. You have to acknowledge that, number one, you're not an expert. You're not a cost reduction expert, and you're not a cost control expert. And just like a professional golfer has a coach, just like a race car driver might have a coach, or a professional athlete or a musician might have coaches, you need somebody that is an expert in this area. And so organizations like ours that are cost reduction experts can help with that. And the key word is forensics. So we're conducting forensic analysis of your bills. And this goes far, far beyond than just forensic auditing that maybe your CPA might talk about here and there. But even forensic auditing, or that your CPA might mention, doesn't go as far as a cost reduction, cost control organization like ours might might focus on.
Yep. Now, one of the key things that you mentioned in there, and I know it's not necessarily what you do in terms of a coach, right? There's an abundance of coaches out there, Eric. And the reason I bring this up is that a lot of business owners, they're leaking money. We know they're leaking money. And at the same time, they don't want to do much about it because they think there's another cost to it. Now, we can get into the dynamics of, if you spend $100 over here to save $1,000 over here, isn't that worth your time?
Yeah.
And there's that argument, right? But still, how does a business owner get over that hump to justify your cost to save them money?
Sure. Let's talk about that. And it literally is, hey, if you're walking in a parking lot and you see a quarter or even a dollar bill, are you willing to even bend over and pick it up?
Right.
But if I bent over and picked it up for you and gave you half of it, you did nothing for it. And so an organization like ours that provides a contingency model, so a shared savings model. So you need an organization that there are no upfront costs. There are no costs for this type of analysis, and they are paid based on performance. They're paid based on identifying and pitbulling, your bills to identify these overcharges and expenses. And, cost reduction, cost control, cost recovery, it sounds heavy. It sounds like it's such a heavy thing or like it's a project. But when we work with organizations and they find out that literally all it took was providing us a few copies of their most recent bills and maybe a contract or something like that, their involvement, you talk about ROI, their involvement to provide us literally with copies of their bills is minimal.
So let's dig into that, Eric, right? Because this is it baffles me how much that word time gets involved in conversations, right? When we do benchmarks on 401k plans, always comes up like, how much time do I need to put into this? And I don't know if this is a question as more of a statement, but if I'm able to save you as a business owner $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, whatever that may be, then how much time are you willing to invest? Right? I guess do you struggle with that? Like how do you convey to a business owner that, we're talking, they're going into an abyss. They have no clue of what's going on, right? And I don't mean to pick on business owners, but you guys, as a business owner, if you're watching this, you have so many hats that you're wearing. And oftentimes there's not the key personnel in the business to oversight on some of these things. So Eric, how do you have that conversation? Or how do you start it to say, look, this is the time commitment, but this is the ROI?
Yeah. It's exactly what you said. And there's no risk. If there's no risk, then your time is well spent to spend 45 minutes or even less to provide us with access to invoices and bills so that our analysts can conduct their forensics on your bills. And this, again, if there's two things that business owners don't have a lot of time on, or excuse me, there's two things that they may not really think about much. And that is, number one, they don't have a lot of time because their time is spent on what? Generating revenue.
Yep.
But they also don't have the expertise. And so we have both of those. And you need to find an organization that does have both of those, that have the time that you don't have, and they have the expertise that maybe you don't want to admit you don't have.
Right.
So, the conversation can be difficult, but it takes, as I mentioned earlier, that willingness to acknowledge there may be a problem and somebody else can help me with that. And it doesn't take my time. And these are individuals that do have the expertise and don't get paid anything unless they find something and fix it and put it back into my business.
So Eric, we had a conversation with a gentleman that does tax credits. And he was sharing a story about a business owner that came back, went through his process, and his process showed that he could be eligible for like $800,000 of tax credits. The gentleman, business owner, went to his CPA. The CPA felt a little threatened, said some things, and the business owner backed out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, the tax credits are the same pay structure that you are.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing up front. There's no risk.
Right.
And there's just a percentage of revenue recovered. So how do you get, if you have a client that is watching, that goes to their CPA and says, what about this stuff? And the CPA says it's not real. Then how do you broach that or breach that conversation? How do you get that owner to see the light?
That is tough. And frankly, we have run into it. We had a situation where a financial institution was going to save, $200,000-$300,000 a year in their telecom. And their leader of IT felt threatened and said no. And so if you're willing to just literally step over that money, then maybe it's not a good fit and maybe you get what you deserve. But, again, as I mentioned, we're focusing on those that do care about unknown costs, unknown wasteful spending, and they do want to optimize every dollar. Yeah. So maybe there are some we can't save because they don't want to be saved.
And it's disheartening, isn't it?
It is so disheartening. It's brutal.
Yeah, because look, the statistics are what they are. Like business owners, I don't look at the statistics, but everybody talks about new businesses are at 50% of them, whatever that is. In 3 years, you're out of business, and after 5 years, it's so many. This is the reason. Like I can't emphasize this. This is the reason why businesses go under. They just are sleeking money left and right. And they don't have an understanding of their cost or their cost going out the door. Yeah. And as we move forward, Eric, do you have some insight on some of the things that are happening, within the economic world that business owners need to be aware of in terms of coming to you and asking and protecting themselves from these leaks?
Yeah, absolutely. So two things. One is inflation, of course, continues to just crush businesses and organizations. That's not going away. That is going to continue. And so what does that affect? That affects your margins and your bottom line. And so that's going to probably, encourage you to act. And the other is that it doesn't matter what industry you are. It doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit, you're a for-profit. It doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar organization or you're just a startup. These unknown costs impact everyone because the vendors are the same. So your electricity provider, your gas provider, your waste and garbage providers, they're the same. Again, and so these expenses, we find expenses that have been there for decades and nobody caught them, even though the CFO says, hey, we're good and we don't need you. And then, they reluctantly say, okay, sure, well, we'll give you a chance. And then we find those types of savings of, 49% savings on your garbage or 38% on your uniforms and linens, et cetera.
But you can't go back though, Eric. Like the tax credits, they can go back. You can't go back. So if you start with working with me today and you go through this process, and let's just say off that number, 49%, that's just moving forward. I can't recover any money.
That's so there's actually two ways that we can save organizations. And one is historical and one is ongoing. So let's talk about historical. So depending on the state you're in, the utilities will have a statute of limitations. So we are able to go back 1, 2, even 3 years and identify those savings and put that money back into your organization. There are telecom providers that in their contracts state that absolutely we can go back and they will honor the refund back to the date of when that problem first occurred. So we had an organization that secured some telecom refunds dating back to the 80s. So it does depend. And then, as I mentioned, the ongoing savings where, hey, look, we drove your costs down, and it isn't just simply, hey, well, you're with AT&T and we're going to recommend you go with Verizon.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I just want to make sure that I clarify as well to your listeners and to your viewers is when you are seeking out a cost recovery expert, you want to find an organization that not only identifies and provides you with findings, but then does something about it. So
it's helpful. That's helpful, Eric.
So not only are we going to provide you with the findings, but we execute. With your permission, we're going to execute on those findings. So we're the ones that are picking up the phone and we're working with your state tax commission or with your utility or again with any of those services that we've audited to fix the problem.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a lot of people that provide strategies and then, hey, go ahead. There's the cookbook. Go ahead and make your cake.
Exactly.
Eric, we've gone a little bit over, and I appreciate all the information. And I know you're a newer member of the National Referral Network, but so far with what you and I have talked about, what do you see the value of the National Referral Network? What the value of the National Referral Network is, and how that may help you and your clients?
Yeah. I love this organization. I'm glad to be a member. And what's interesting is I love my clients, and I know that there are services I can't provide them, and that they're talking about. They might be asking or looking for a bookkeeper, or maybe they are looking for insurance for their employees, or tax strategies, etc. And so I want to be able to provide them with expertise that I don't have. And so being a part of the National Referral Network provides me, those options to be able to provide my clients with other services that I can't provide them.
That's awesome, Eric. Hey, buddy. Well, I always appreciate our professionals' time. I know you guys are busy. If you found this video helpful in any way, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those notifications. We're here every Tuesday morning. Usually it's the other Mike that's doing the interviews. He is out on location today, so he wasn't with us. But every Tuesday morning, providing professional insights with professionals like Eric. So please be here next Tuesday. We'll have another professional. Eric, thank you so much for your time. Certainly appreciate it. And we look forward to talking soon.
Thank you.